What is righteous? I come for light up a dance and it's dancing from a distance. When I stop sing dancer. Greetings, people. It's your boy, the righteous messenger, passing through once again in the flesh. And today I'm going to talk about numerical contradictions in the Bible. That is, numbers that contradict themselves in the Bible. Before I go on, I'd like to say special thanks to all of my viewers and subscribers. Thanks. People, I'm going to give you 4 numerical contradictions in the Bible, and the first one deals with how old Jehoiachin, yeah, I hope I mentioned it properly, Jehoiachin, how old he was when he became a king, or how old he was when he started to reign. And if you look in Second Kings 24 verse 8, I'm reading from the King James Version. It says, and Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. And his mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. People, from there, we go to 2 Chronicles 36 verse 9. And I'm reading from King James Version. It says, Jehoiachin was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So basically, the 2 different verses, one in Kings, 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, are both talking about Jehoiachin when he began to rule. In 2 Kings, it says he was 18. In 2 Chronicles, it's recorded that he was 8 when he began to reign. So people, which is which? 18 or 8? I mean, if the Bible is the word of God, I'm not expecting to find any mistakes in there. People, it might seem trivial or a small mistake, or even let's say a typo, but a mistake is a mistake. We are talking about the word of God. And some people argue that, or some Christians argue that is a scribal mistake and or a numerical mistake. Some Christian apologists argue that there's no mistake in the original scripts that the Bible was translated from. But where is the original scripts? Where can we get it from? Which one is the original script? People are asking. And for me, numerical mistakes worry Christians or apologists a lot, because it worries them more than theological mistakes. Because with theological mistakes, it can be argued to interpret or to suit the argument or the conversation. But it's very hard to argue against numerical mistakes because numbers don't lie. So people, I'm asking 8 or 18, or 18 or 8. How old was Jehoiachin when he began to reign? Please, Christians, can you come and give us some answers in the comment section? People, the second numerical contradiction or mistake or error in the Bible is also about a king. And this king is called King Ahaziah. And I'm reading from 2 Kings 8 verse 26, King James Bible or King James Version. It says 2 and 22 years. Sorry. It says 2 and 20 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, king of Israel. So basically, King James version, 2 Kings 8 verse 26, is saying that Ahaziah began to reign at the age of 22. People, did you hear that? It says 2 and 20. That means 22. Let's go to the same story in 2 Chronicles 2:22. Let me look for the verse, and then I'll read it to you. So 2 Chronicles 22 verse 2, I'm reading from King James Version, says, 42 and 2 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. So 2 Chronicles 22 verse 2 is saying that King Ahaziah was 42 years old when he began to reign. 42. The previous verse in 2 Kings was saying he was 22. Now 2 Chronicles is saying he was 42. People, the same story, oh, the same story. Which one is it? 22 or 42? This is the word of God, people. Anyway, let's go to the third contradiction, numerical contradiction that I'm going to show you in the Bible. People, the third numerical contradiction in the Bible I'm going to talk about talks about how many stalls that King Solomon had for his horses. Stalls. I think it's somewhere you keep horses. And in 1 Kings 4 verse 26, I'm reading from King James Version. It says, and Solomon had 40,000 stalls for his horses I'll read again. 1 Kings 4 verse 26. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots and 12,000 horsemen. When we go to 2 Chronicles 9 verse 25, let's see what the same story is talking about. So people, I'm reading from King James Version, 2 Chronicles 9 verse 25, and we're still talking about how many stalls this particular story is saying King Solomon had for his horses. And let's just take it that stall is where you keep your horses. It said, and Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem. So basically, in 1 Kings, he's saying that he had 40,000 stalls. 2 Chronicles is saying he had 4,000 stalls. People, which one is true? People, the fourth numerical contradiction in the Bible I'm going to talk about is about King Solomon as well. And this one is talking about how many baths he had in something he created or he made called the molten sea. Let's say molten sea is like, let's say, a swimming pool made with iron, and the bath, let's say the bath is the amount of water you need to take a bath. So here he's saying that he made a molten sea. Basically, it's in 1 Kings 7:23 to 26. It's quite long. I'm not going to read all of it. I'll just read what he said. He said, and he made a molten sea. I'm reading from King James Version to remind you. And then when you go to the end of chapter 26, it says, and it contained 2,000 baths. And I'm saying a bath is the amount of water you need to take a bath. Let's say 8 to 10 gallons. So from the beginning of 1 Kings 7:23 to 26, he said he made a molten of sea. And like I said, a molten of sea is like a swimming pool made with iron. And it contained 2,000 baths. Now, when we go to 2 Chronicles 4, verse 2 to 5. So people, 2 Chronicles 4, verse 2 to 5. I'm reading from King James Version. I won't really read all of it. I'll just read the beginning or point out where the contradictions are. So once again, he's saying also he made a molten of sea, which I explained earlier that is a swimming pool made of iron. And at the end, in verse 5, the end of verse 5 says, and it held 3,000 baths. And as I explained earlier, bath is the amount of water you need to bath. So basically, the contradiction is in Kings, 1 Kings, it says this bath or this molten of sea had 2,000 baths. The same story in Chronicles says it had 3,000 baths. And I mean, which is which? A garment will say, yeah. And I mean, it's trivial, 3,000, 2,000. But once again, this is the word of God, and we don't expect to find any mistakes in there. People, this is what people base their salvation on. You know, why should there be mistakes in that? Besides, most Christians will argue that God is perfect without error, and that God cannot be an author of false meaning. Basically, God cannot lie. So if you are saying that God cannot lie, God cannot make mistakes, I mean, based on the contradictions I've just showed you, is this a true claim or statement? If the Bible is written or inspired by a perfect being, I don't think there should be contradictions or mistakes or errors in there. I mean, to end this video, I'll say that in my opinion, the Bible is it's just a collection of books written by different people over different times throughout many centuries. Then that is why it has contradictions or errors or mistakes. And I'll end here. It's your boy, the righteous messenger, passing through once again in the flesh. We'll meet again in the next video. Peace.